Let's be honest, most men drift. We wake up, we scroll, we work, and then we just rinse and repeat. And we know we're softer than we should be. That's why I built the 31-day resilience reset. This is not a devotional. It is a field manual for men ready to stop drifting and start fighting back. So for 31 days, you'll train your spirit, mind, and body with scripture, prayer, and daily challenges that forge real resilience. Go to www.Undaunted.Life/31 days to download this resource for free. That's Undaunted.Life/31 days. Start your reset today. This is Undaunted.Life, a man's podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Thompson. Let's get into it. Joby Martin, that is a spectacular hat. You're not going to lose it, are you? Because I sent you one of the first hats we ever made, and you lost it. I had to send you another one.
Yeah, it was my favorite hat, too. I don't know what happened to it. Probably my son stole it.
Yeah, so...
And it's, you know...
Yeah, I think we made 50
Probably.
hats the first time we made hats because they were like so expensive. And I'm like, I don't know if anyone's going to wear these. And then everyone I gave them to, they're like, these hats are amazing. So
it's the best hat. I have a big head. So too many hats they don't fit over my dome. You know what I mean? So
yeah, that's why I don't really
I need
like
a grown man hat.
Kind of the mid crown hat. Like there's a bunch of really popular brands out there that do like, you know, the trucker hat and all that. I was like, yeah, cool. Thanks for the hat. But it's like, I'm never going to wear this because it's like, it doesn't feel good on my head.
Well,
and
my head's wide too. So most of my trucker hats, like, this part of my head is too wide, so it's weird.
All that knowledge is in there. And Joby, I don't know if you know this, well, because we're filming this in the past. You guys are listening in the future. This is episode 899. We're almost at 900 episodes. Can you believe this is still happening?
Sometimes I really can't.
What do you mean?
And
what do you mean?
I won't go into that. And then sometimes I'm like, of course, God's got his hand all over what you're doing. Good job.
Well, I would like to dig in a little bit more onto the, you know, where you feel like you don't believe this is still happening. But I did just send you an episode this morning because I had to go back in my backlog to find something. And I found that episode the first episode after my second vocal cord surgery. So this was, you know, after me going through a second recovery, a second implant on my vocal cord, you know, in between surgeries, basically having no voice. I couldn't talk above a whisper and like literally sitting there like, is Undaunted done? Like, I mean, I can't speak. I can't talk into a microphone. I can't do anything. And so like going back, I actually listened to it this morning in the gym and I was just doing everything I could just to get through that one episode to, you know, give the donors and give the fans like, you know, hey, we're going to do our best to keep this going. But that was pre-rehab, pre-surgery, like not drug rehab, y'all out there, don't clip that on the internet, but rehab for the voice and all that. So it is kind of a miracle that we're even still here doing anything.
No doubt, man. No doubt. Good job. Well done.
Well,
Way to stay in the fight.
Yeah, I'm trying to stay in the fight. But speaking of fights, you created a bunch because here I go. You caused, my favorite word, you caused a bit of a kerfuffle, right? Or as Candace Owens says, a kerfluffle. And so what happened is on a few Ask a Pastors ago, I gave you a Mexican standoff. And nobody was, you know where I'm going. Nobody was mad that I called it a Mexican standoff. I thought that's how I was going to get in trouble. But it's like, that's what it's called. It's called a Mexican standoff. And so to give everybody that maybe didn't hear that, I, you know, had a scenario is from, you know, one of the guys that sent me the question. They're like, hey, guy breaks into your house. You have a gun. He has a gun. You're saved. You know you're saved. You don't think he is. Do you let him kill you? Because, you know, you want him to have more of a chance to accept the gospel and all that. And your answer, I believe, was, I'd shoot that mug in the head or something like that. You said
face.
it. Yeah, shoot that. No, you said in the, well, it's something like that. Face, head, the head region. You were going to separate this guy from his consciousness and his life. And oh boy, did a bunch of people in the comments section. I don't go into the comments section, but I do get notifications. And that video keeps popping up. People just having it out, going crazy in the comments section. And we even got dorks online, other pastors with other ministries that I'll address here in a little bit. They clipped it and they reacted to it. And they're like, we don't believe that Joby Martin even understands the gospel if he could answer in a certain way. And I got a message for them here in just a second. But what do you have to say for yourself, Joby Martin?
Yeah, I'll double down on it, man. If you're in your house, here's the thing that I've only seen one of those reaction videos. And what they're doing is they're conflating laying down your life with what we're talking about here.
Yeah, they're saying persecution and somebody breaking in your house trying to take you or your family out. They're making that the same thing.
Correct. And so I just taught, we're teaching through the book of Matthew, and I know this will come out later from when we're recording it. So a couple of weeks ago, we're in the passage, if someone slaps you on the right cheek, you give them the other cheek. So the real question here is somebody insulting me, as you've talked about a lot of times? Yep. And dude, you didn't make that up. Every commentator I read, it's a right-handed guy slaps the right cheek. It's to backhand somebody. And that is an insult, not an attack. That's very different. So as it would be very hard for me, but if somebody slapped me in the face and they're just trying to insult me or shame me or belittle me, the gospel commands and demands that I actually stand up and act like a man, give them my other cheek and say, you don't treat me that way, but I don't necessarily go full rage mode and choke them unconscious. Okay. Or I don't do that. That is different. An insult is different than an attack. What the people that are reacting to this and equating it to martyrdom don't understand that God has placed me in a role as a provider and protector of my family.
Yeah.
And if I allow myself to be taken out in my own home by an intruder, then I do think what Paul is saying, if you don't provide for your own family, that doesn't just mean hot meals and a roof. That means provision and protection. Ephesians chapter 5, that is the definition of what love is, a love of a husband to a wife, okay? To provide and protect. That is our role as men, as dads, as husbands. If I allow some evil person to take me out for some kind of misunderstanding of what salvation is, and I allow myself to not play the role that God has placed me in, a provision and protection for my family, I am worse than an unbeliever. So I hear what you're saying, and that is not the same as being persecuted as a follower of Jesus. That is, I am a defender, and I will protect my home, period, end dot. And if you don't agree with it, I don't care. I'm sure your wife and children wish you think what I think.
Mm-hmm.
But, that's between you and your wife. I'm sure she probably tells you how to live anyway, so don't worry about it.
Well, and this is what I would say is it's always so interesting to me because I've been in these debates and I've done like film debates on this exact topic. And it's always the people that are already cowardly and soft that advocate for pacifism. Because it's not like there's like this truly biblically meek guy that's also capable of violence and aggression that suddenly reads the Bible and suddenly concludes that they just have to enter the fetal position anytime that physical violence, righteous physical violence is on the table. And I'm with you. Like, I hope that the wives and children and the flocks of these pastors out there complaining never have to suffer the consequences of their father's cowardice or softness, because it's like, it's easy to say that when you're in an air-conditioned room in a safe environment where you have a police force that'll show up if you call and all those types of things. But when help is at least minutes away and seconds count and physical violence is on the table, you can't have guys that are not standing ready. That's not what it means to stand firm.
I don't know. I know that you use the word pastor because that's the title that's on their video or whatever. But can you be a pastor if you're not doing what pastors do? Pastor and shepherd are the same word in the New Testament.
Yeah.
And if all you do is lead people beside green pastures and still waters, but you don't defend against the wolf, Jesus said you're a hireling. So I don't know that you're actually being the shepherd that you're called to be if you don't do all that is required of the shepherd. Listen, man, I hope and pray I never have the opportunity to have to stand in the gap to defend the life of other people, particularly my own family. But if you're not willing to do that, you're not doing what a shepherd does. And quit reading your passivity into the text. Just read the text and do what it says.
What I think as well, a lot of people, again, I talk about pre-decision all the time. Sometimes when violence just shows up, some guys react positively, right? It's just something in there deep down. I saw a video the other day, a dude at a car wash. This is a guy that works at a car wash. He's in a blue polo shirt and he's in the parking lot. There's a dude in the parking lot with a hatchet, right? And he's threatening people and doing all that. And this dude lunges at him, grabs a hatchet, does a little kind of single leg, little trip takedown, lands right on top of the guy. And then some other dude in a blue polo's kind of running around, not knowing what to do. The guy yells at him, get the hatchet, get the hatchet. He's trying to pull it out of the guy's hands. The guy doesn't want to let it go. So the dude that took him down starts wham, wham, wham. And then we got compliance at that point. He lets go of the hatchet and then the video cuts off. It's like maybe that guy just, hey, he was built for that moment and he reacted, but something tells me that guy, because the takedown looked like he had trained it before. It looked like he was trained and he had made the mental decision that at some point, someday, in order to save a life, potentially even my own, I'm going to have to use this training or this violence. And there's either those that are capable of it or those that are incapable, those that have pre-decided or those that are going to fall to the level of their training.
Did you see the video of the girl being attacked and they're snatching her bag and kind of groping all over and the boyfriend is just standing at a safe distance? So that's the posture that the critics of what I said, that's the posture that they should take. That's what you think. You think God is looking at this young man watching his girlfriend be assaulted, and you think he wants you to stand there and not do something. That's what you think. Do you think Bonhoeffer was wrong? Those pastors.
Yeah.
So when they think that what Bonhoeffer was doing in planning to take out Hitler to save human life, they think he was wrong? Yeah, I don't think so. I don't know what they think. I'd love to meet them in real life and have a discussion.
Yeah, that'd be a hard thing to argue for. But all right, let's move on. Since you've already doubled down, hopefully we don't have to give you a chance to triple down at any point.
Hey, I will say this. I don't read comments, but I got 1 million emails and texts saying, thank you, Pastor. Thanks for giving me language to what God had placed in me as a man, a provider and protector, to be able to understand and articulate my role.
All right, very good and amen. Let's move on to a question. This is from a Dominion Team 1 member. Guys, if you don't know what that is, Undaunted.Life/Dominion. This is from Brad. Hey, Joby, thanks for taking questions like these. I go to church with you, so you know that by the way he phrased it. From an evangelical Christian perspective, I have a question about Jesus' early life and education. In first century Jewish culture, many Hebrew boys completed their education at Bet Sefer, and only some continued on to Bet Midrash, while others returned home to learn the trade of their father. Scripture tells us that Jesus is the Son of God and had extraordinary understanding of the Scriptures, yet the Gospels also tell us that he was known as a carpenter and or a construction worker, and learned to the trade of Joseph. My question is this: did Jesus intentionally not continue formal rabbinical training because he knew the Father's will would lead him in a different direction toward the cross? Or was he unable, by cultural or social standards, to move forward to becoming a rabbi? How should we understand this in light of God's sovereign plan?
It's a great question. And what I love about the question, it's very like Chosen-esque, you know? It's like, all right, the Bible tells us what we need to know, not everything we want to know. And a lot of times it doesn't fill in every little gap that we like to know. And so you've got to do a little bit of speculation, but you never want to speculate outside of the Scriptures. It needs to be within the Scripture. So that guy probably heard me preaching on it just recently. When Jesus chooses fishermen as his followers, that means they failed out of the rabbinical line. They did not have what it takes to become a Talmudim. And so oftentimes the rabbi would say, go learn the trade of your father. Well, we know when Jesus was 12 years old, he was teaching the Scriptures to the scribes as one who had authority at 12 years old. So he didn't fail out. And yet we know that he worked for his dad. So he apparently chose to live in utter obscurity, live with his dad, and yet the moment he comes on the scene, people are already calling him rabbi. So even if he did not have the credentials of some other rabbi that gave him the title, because of the competency in which he operated, people already gave him that title. Which the application there is, you don't need a title to do what God has called you to do. And now I'm pro education and I'm pro submitting yourself to a series of learning and all that kind of thing. But Jesus knew who his father had called him to be, and he didn't need the man-made system to get that kind of approval. He had the approval of his heavenly Father. But it was not because he was unable. Even when he gets to the Sermon on the Mount, at the end of it, everybody is astonished at his teaching because he taught as one who had authority. The other rabbis, they wouldn't say that, because what they would do is they would carry on the school that they were a part of, and they would just repeat what had been taught to them. But that's a great question. It's a good way to think about things like that. It'll help you read your Bible better because you'll think about the emotions of the humans, what it smelt like, what it felt like, as opposed to just thinking about it like a VeggieTales story.
Hey guys, real quick. You've probably heard me say it a bunch of times on this show, but I think potentially the biggest societal issue that we face in this country is fatherless homes. And beyond that, I know that there are a lot of fathers with sons that do not know how to lead them into manhood. But one of the problems is that men in our society and churches are able to recognize that there is a problem, but they currently lack the tools to begin solving it. I don't want boys falling through the cracks while men in churches struggle figuring out next steps. That's why I want to introduce you to Kids Outdoor Zone. Kids Outdoor Zone, or KOZ, is an outdoor adventure ministry that provides boys with men as mentors to help direct and train them in outdoor skills and guide them to becoming a godly man. The KOZ vision is for every boy, whether they have a father in the home or not, to have a man or group of men to help him navigate the masculine journey into manhood and a relationship with Jesus. KOZ groups help boys learn biblical masculinity, outdoor skills training, how to discern God's call in their lives, and much more. KOZ groups usually meet one Saturday a month. The mentors lead the boys in prayer and the expectations for the day, and then they get to learn some sort of a life skill that will help the boy as he grows into a man. This could be everything from learning how to build a fire or a shelter, working on an engine, fishing for food, shooting a firearm or a bow, traversing different terrains, cleaning an animal, and on from there. Afterwards, the mentors take the boys through heart training that introduces a scriptural basis for the life skill that they just learned. Then the boys get some time to individually reflect on what they've learned, and there's certainly a lot more, but man, it just has such a big impact on these boys. It's time to invest in the next generation of young men. Guys, this is your call to action. Start a Kids Outdoor Zone group at your church by signing up at kidsoutdoorzone.com. That's www.kids.outdoorzone.com. There's a big red bar going through the middle of the home screen that says, "Want to start an outdoor group?" Click there to start. Let's not just lament what's been happening. Let's make a difference now. Again, that's www.kidsoutdoorzone.com. Sign your church up to lead a KOZ group today. Well, that's why I love things like The Chosen, because they slow some of these stories down by giving you the side conversations that are not in Scripture. But I talk about the woman with the problem of blood all the time because that was like a 3-episode arc when that's like 3 lines in your New Testament. And you can just read and be like, oh man, poor lady. All right, cool. She got healed. It's like, nah, bro. Like she was suffering year after year after year. She was out of society entirely. And to hear someone call her daughter, like, oh my gosh, like she may have not been called daughter by anyone in a very, very long period of time. So shout out again to The Chosen. All right, here's a question from a couple of Forging Tablers. So Jake and Eric, they both had, a similar question. But do we have any indication whether Adam and Eve went to heaven?
That's a good. The closest indication, in my opinion, would be when God made a covering for them and shed the blood of an animal to give them that covering over their sin. That is definitely a foreshadowing of the gospel of Jesus and what the proto-evangelion that God gives, where he says, talking to Eve, and you will have a son. So from your line, the serpent crusher is on the way. I don't think it's a huge leap to deduce from that moment. Even though they received judgment and got kicked out of the garden, it does seem that they received the grace of God in receiving that covenant or that covering. And I don't think it would be a stretch to say they were trusting God's provision for the covering of their sin. Even though, and Eve fully received the fact that the Messiah was coming one day who would wash away their sin, not just take it away.
And so,
but I don't have a particular verse that said, Moses and Elijah came and transfigured on the mountain, and they said, Adam and Eve say hi from heaven. I don't have that verse.
So would it almost be like the sacrifice that God did? Would that have been like an imputation of righteousness? Because even when we look at, Abraham, it's like, he believed and it was counted to him as righteousness. Would it be something like that?
I do believe so. And if you follow up post Genesis 3, God is still conversing with Adam and Eve in regards to like Cain and Abel and that kind of stuff. So that relationship by the sacrifice God made has remained intact. And it was, the Shanes talk about it this way. They got a great line in the song, what you knew by faith, we know by name. So they believed that one day a sacrifice once and for all was coming that was going to crush the head of Satan and restore their right relationship with God. And every time they were participating in the sacrifice, they were demonstrating their faith in the coming Messiah. And then we know his name is Jesus Christ, lived, died, resurrected on the third day.
All right, very good. I got a question coming up from a donor here in a little bit about a marriage situation. And guys, if you want to get your questions in here, you do have to be one of our monthly donors, Undaunted.Life/donate. Then you can just DM me your questions or send me an email. But this is actually a question for me because I was thinking about this the other day because you hear about this a lot in kind of secular culture, or maybe celebrity culture, or, the millionaire, billionaire class, that type of thing. But it's prenuptial agreements. And so I've heard the argument made that Christian couples should not get prenuptial agreements because it basically is foreshadowing that this covenant will be broken anyway, so we need to make sure we have all of our ducks in a row. But just, again, like talking about it in black and white terms, if a Christian couple were even to come to you or to church in y'all's network or Acts 29 and say, hey, look, we're both believers, we want to honor God with all of this, but this just makes sense to us to have some sort of a prenuptial agreement if the covenant is broken and we biblically have means by which to leave this marriage.
I would say no way. No way. The two become one flesh. You join everything. It's one name. It's one bed. It's, one primary residence. It's one bank account. And here's what you're saying. I heard Charlie Kirk say this. I worked into a sermon the other day. You ever notice when a man goes to a wedding and a funeral, he wears the same thing?
Same thing.
Because it's a death, bro. And when I said it at church, everybody laughed. And it's funny,
weird.
But
when people laughed, I remember listening to that sermon recently, and when everyone laughed, I felt like I was like, it's kind of like when everybody during Talladega Nights, when he said, if you ain't first, you're last, everybody laughed. I didn't. I was like, that makes total sense to me. But I didn't get why people thought it was funny.
Well, I mean, they thought I was kind of bagging on marriage. You know what I mean? That's kind of how it sounds. And you're like, no, man. It's death to my old life. It's death to just living for me. What I have is not mine anymore. What I have is ours. And that is what you are risking when you look across, that altar at that woman and you're saying, I'm about to give my whole self to you in the presence of God. And it is the biggest risk I'm ever going to take. And I'm trusting you with my heart, my life, my finances. I'm trusting you with everything. And in so doing, you could hurt me more than any other person, and I'm allowing you into that space. And I believe that the love is worth that risk. So I would not be a fan.
Okay, very good. We'll actually go to the marriage question here. This is from a donor named Aaron. Aaron, thank you so much for being a donor. How do you equip men to push back darkness in their marriage and family when they are married to a non-believer? More specifically, one that is in a cult. Even more specifically, one that is a Jehovah's Witness. I'm praying that this question will also help other men in a similar situation. So I've had some back and forth with Aaron on this because in his situation, his wife is a Jehovah's Witness. He doesn't really know exactly what to do. I know the things that I told him to do, but we can look at this from either perspective. We know there are God-fearing, Christ-following women whose husbands are not saved, so they go to church alone, take the kids alone, and they're praying for their husbands, and then it's just not really going anywhere. But even for men, how do you equip a man to push back darkness in their marriage and family when they are literally unequally yoked?
Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind is Ephesians chapter 6, that your battle is not against flesh and blood. So your wife is not the darkness. She is caught up in darkness, but she herself is not the darkness. And so if you think you're going to battle her to win her to the light, that's not going to work good. The way Paul talks about it in the book of 1 Corinthians is there was a whole bunch of unequally yoked people there, right? And if she, Paul actually makes a provision that if they abandon you, you do everything you can to try to keep them home, but you can't keep somebody home that doesn't want to be home. So abandonment is a legitimate reason, according to the New Testament, for a marriage to cease. However, primarily what Paul talks about is, listen, you have no idea the impact you're having on your spouse, but the way to win them over is to grace them. Now, as a caveat to that, I've been listening to a lot of Wes Huff lately. A lot of it depends on the nature of your wife, too. If you think about it in John chapter 11, when Lazarus dies, and you got Mary and Martha, he talks to them very differently. Martha, she comes running out, and he has a theological dissertation with her about what it means to be the resurrection and the life. So he kind of goes the apologetics route with her in the loss of her brother. And apparently that really moves her in a significant way because he meets her where she is, was kind of between the ears. With Mary, all he does is sit with her and cry with her.
Yep.
And that moves her.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that you have to do, regardless of the spiritual status of your wife, is you got to live with your wife as unto knowledge. And she needs to not feel like she is being attacked, but you're fighting for her. And so I don't know your wife. My wife would kind of be a combination of the apologetics, but also grace, grace, grace. And so approach her in the way that God designed her to be. I don't think it would be a bad idea to take the Wes Huffs of the world, those kind of clips, because he talks about the differentiation between Christianity and some of these cults, and have her look into these things. But the closer you draw to Christ, the more she should benefit because you're more loving, you're more patient, you're more kind. And that's what Paul says in 1 Corinthians with the unbelieving spouse, that you win them over by grace.
Well, and if you're showing love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control, like if you're showing all those things, that's going to get on them, right? That gets on your wife.
Correct.
It gets on your kids. It gets on your coworkers. It gets on everybody. And so that's just kind of an outpouring of the gospel work going on in your life. All right, we got a question from Brad, not Dominion Brad, but a different Brad who is a donor. Thank you, Brad, for being a donor. And it's about your thoughts on AI worship music.
I listened to it. I just had this meeting with this super smart pastor in San Diego, and he pastors a local church. Great dude, really smart, theologically trained. He's getting his PhD in like AI ethics, and he was just unpacking to a bunch of pastors what he saw about the future. At one point, he goes, there is about a 10% chance this wipes out all of humanity. And he says, but I don't believe that because I believe the truth of the scriptures and, Christ Church will prevail and all that. All I could think is, have you seen Terminator 2? All right, so anyway.
Yeah.
Listen, there's this AI Psalms album called Psalms and the Blues, and they just take the Psalms and make it blues. I write sermons to it. It's my favorite thing, especially if you know the Bible, man. You're like, they're singing about the 23rd Psalm before they ever get to the Lord is my shepherd part. So I'm not anti it. I think there's some serious dangers ahead that we don't even know what we don't know yet. We should pay very close attention to those. I don't think AI should be a substitute for human beings writing worship songs to the living God. But in regards to like being one little small tool on my laptop in order for me to worship, I don't see a big problem.
So if John Tyson were here, he might bring this up because this was in one of his latest books. He talked about this thing that I'm going to add to. But he said back in the 1300s, we had the first bank ever created. I think it was in Florence. And he said that was when we had a transition from land is wealth to money is wealth. Then in the 1700s, we had the first steam engine. And so that went from human bodies do work to machines do work. And then in the 1900s, we kind of had the information technology revolution. So it went from wisdom is knowledge to information is knowledge. So think about the people that you grew up with that were, when it came to common sense, they were dumb as a box of rocks, but they got a 34 on their ACT. So it's like, go figure, right? The thing that I would add to it is now we have AI. And so now AI and quantum whatever, like a bot or a computer or a large, language learning, whatever system, they are thinking and creating for you when it used to be humans that would think and create. And so you and I have talked about how we use it like as a search mechanism and different things like that. We're checking sources. We don't just plug it into one, we plug it into a bunch. But bro, when I was preparing my Bad Bunny, the podcast about what he did at the Super Bowl and reading through the lyrics and all that, do you know what ChatGPT told me? This was the day after the Super Bowl. He said Bad Bunny did not perform the halftime show this year. George Strait did. ChatGPT said this. And so I go, what is wrong with you? Bad Bunny did it. Can you please give me these lyrics in English? And it goes, oh, I'm sorry. I made a mistake. You're right. It was Bad Bunny. And I'm just like, what about the dopes out there that are going to plug something into one of these chats? It's not even that they're getting search stuff wrong. It's that the things that they create, it's devoid of conscience. There are people that are trying to make sure that when AI and quantum combine and become sentient, that it has some sort of ethics. It's like trying to imagine trying to tell a lion when it's ethically okay to kill a baby zebra. right? Like it's not in
Right.
there because there is not the image of God imprinted on these people. You know what I mean? So it's like, I'm okay with like consuming the music because you're not always thinking about the artist that made it anyway. But it's like that a computer made that. Like it wasn't a human that even understands art and how it should, serve as a worship to God. You know what I mean?
And fundamentally, like we are image bearers of God, man. This AI is an image bearer of not in the same way, but it is a reflection of whoever started the input on the large language model. And there are definitely some that are tilted for it to a very non-biblical worldview. So you better be very careful.
Yeah.
And one of the things they're seeing now, especially the more you use your AI, the dumber it gets because it can only contain so much information. ChatGPT in particular is biased towards making you feel good about you.
That's right.
It is a friend that is trying to give you what you want to hear. And AI hallucinations is a real thing. It will just make up things that never happened. One of the places this is really, really bad, I heard it on some podcast, the amount of lawyers that are quoting case law from AI, and the case law never happened.
Doesn't exist.
And AI created it out of thin air. Those are the kind of things we have to be very, very wary of. Although, what I will say, the church historically has made leaps and bounds every time there was some kind of incredible innovation. Printing press, we get Bibles. The road system of Rome, Paul takes the gospel to all those places. The internet pops, and there's evil stuff on there, but there's sure a lot of people getting saved and hearing the gospel. And so we should not go the way of hiding our head in the sand. We should be very, very aware, very, very prayerful, and stepping into this space because it's coming whether you like it or not.
Well, and the one thing I would say to the pastors listening to this, please don't let ChatGPT write your sermons for you. Please. No. I shouldn't have to say that, but please do your own study. Please do your own study. Please do your own study.
There's a guy named Kevin DeYoung. I've never met him. He's kind of big, like in the Gospel Coalition, maybe that kind of round of guys. I heard him one time when he was talking about does he use AI in his sermon. He had a pretty good standard by which he decided. He says, let it fetch you things. Don't ever let it create you things. So, hey, what would be a good illustration? That's not a good idea, Pastor. Pray, read your Bible, study like crazy. If you want to ask a specific, how far is Bethesda from Jerusalem? That's a good question because you can go look it up, or it can go look it up for you a lot faster. Or what does this Greek word mean? You work with Logos Bible Software, don't you?
Absolutely. We love them.
All right. Logos Bible Software now has an AI function in the Logos Bible Software, and it can be trusted because all of the inputs are from people that believe in God's revealed, infallible, inspired word. So that would be a great place to ask those kind of questions as opposed to ChatGPT, whatever it's called. That could be, it could take in demonic sources just as good as biblical sources. So shout out to Logos for being on the cutting edge of the game, man. It's a good idea.
Yeah, and if you listen to any of the Forging Tables here recently, we have an ad at the beginning. We have an Undaunted.Life study bundle on the Logos Bible software. So you sign up for Logos, you get our bundle. It's like $3,000 some odd worth of stuff for like $350, and you guys waste more than that at the casino every weekend. So we're getting down here to the end, so we know it's about to get fun. All right, have you heard about back in medieval days or some of these times when people had to provide a pound of flesh? Have you heard of that?
Yes.
Yeah, so that some people use that as like a colloquialism, like, oh man, it's going to be a pound of flesh to get through this. But if I were to say to you, hey, Joby, I need a pound of flesh, where would you start cutting? So you got your Nehemiah knife out, from Dawson Knives, but where would you start? Like on your body, because bone's pretty heavy, but so is flesh, but you got to get a pound of flesh in this bowl in order for, your family to live or the church to keep going or something like that. Where are we going to cut from? Where are we going?
Well, I'm a 52-year-old man, so the waistline is probably the place that I have the most to spare. So I would go there.
Okay, sounds good. Now, also, a few months ago, where you asked me questions and all that, and I tried to come up with a dad joke, and so it just didn't really happen. And so, I wanted to like end with dad jokes and all that, but I want to do more like a did you know kind of thing. So, Joby Martin, did you know that New York and Minnesota are opposites?
I did not know that.
Well, because New York is where Big Apple is, and Minnesota is where Minneapolis.
Yeah, that's a dad joke.
Come on, Joby, you got one for me? You got one better than that?
No, I don't do those kind of jokes. I don't know them. They don't come to my mind.
You should.
I'm
You
sorry.
should do
I
it from
apologize.
stage. But hey, I do want to circle back before we get out of here. You said from the beginning you're kind of surprised this show's still going. What'd you have in mind? Because a specific example came to mind. What's the deal? What are you so surprised about?
People should go back and watch you speaking on the panel at our men's conference. That's what they should do. Go back and search that up. And I love it, dude. I love it. I love how raw and rash and real you are.
All I know,
but in a world of cancel culture,
hey,
you have survived. Congratulations.
Joby, there was a lot of wisdom up on that stage. And you know what? No one can remember anything any of those smart guys said. It was me talking about 2 streams of lotion hitting each other. That's what everybody remembers. That should tell you something.
That's what I remember. There's no doubt.
All right, Joby. We'll see you next time.
All right, buddy. Peace.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. Wherever you're listening to this, please subscribe, rate, and leave us a positive 5-star review. If you want me to come speak live at your event or on your podcast, just shoot me an email to info@Undaunted.Life. That's info@Undaunted.Life. Follow us on Instagram and like us on Facebook, and check out our website for everything else, including how to donate to keep more content like this coming your way. Just go to www.Undaunted.Life. And as always, we want to thank the band Holy Name for allowing us to use their music for our content. The music on this podcast is their song Perpetua, which is off their self-titled debut album on Face Down Records. The links are in the description. I'm your host, Kyle Thompson. Remember, keep pushing back darkness, keep forging spiritual, mental, and physical resilience, keep seeking the Lion of Judah.